here in Lagos, Nigeria, we'll be looking at what does the future holds for Nigerian youth, as we all know that they are the critical aspects of the government. If the youth are not properly positioned, is it going to have a positive or a negative impact in our society or the government of the day? But before we give you insight into the guests that we have, let's quickly go look at this short clip.
Edo State, if you hear the name of your area on this list, that means this heaven you are likely not to make it.
Never.
Because these are areas where sinners they operate. Now devil they use una and you have to repent. Because the fear of God is too low. And we are coming for evangelism.
Yes.
So listen very well. These are sinners locations.
Yes.
Number one, Ekpoma. Hey,
Ekpoma.
Ekpoma, especially AAU. AAU, when I know they run this heaven. When I they run for AAU, but when I don't know where when they run go. Allow your manhood and womanhood to rest Ekpoma students.
Yes.
Ekpoma by Humudumu, Uromi, Auchi,
Yes.
especially Auchi Poly, you can't make this heaven.
God.
Fornication won't finish una.
Won't finish
We
them.
the thing when una they smoke Auchi boys. Aviele Fuga, again the body, Anegbete, Obila, Jaturu, Ibilo,
Yes.
Okada,
Yes.
Ekiadolo,
Yes.
especially College of Education,
College of
Ekiadolo,
Education.
you can't make this heaven.
Never.
Aviele una don't come out hand for heavenly race. Benin City,
Yes.
Jesus. The entire Benin filled with perishable souls. Only 17 righteous people there Benin. The whole location for Benin are seen as Fulani. Ikpoba Hill, Boba Slope, Aduawa, Ramat Park, Agbo Park.
Well, he's known as the radical evangelist, but away from that, he's a public affairs analyst, a youth advocate, and of course, we have him live here in the studio. He's a person of Randy Akapita. Good morning and good to see you.
Good morning, my pleasure being here.
You just told us people that will not make heaven.
Oh, the heavenly race.
The heavenly race. That's just on a lighter note.
Yeah.
Let's go into serious business. How would you describe the current state of youth empowerment in Nigeria?
To put it, clearly, it is rather unfortunate. Because if you look at the statistics, Nigeria is a youthful nation. Our population of youth is about 70%. That is over 100 million people. And when you look at youth unemployment, you look at education, and you look at the infrastructure that gives youth the opportunity to develop their personal capacities and then create wealth or enterprise for themselves, you know that the indices are not taken rightly. So it is a situation where there is still room for improvement, because the government would say that we are doing this, we are doing ABC, but of course, is it reflecting in the, quality of youth and the employment indices that we have? That's another question.
So do you think the government has been putting policy in place that will carry this youth along?
Well, if you are looking at policies, then you should be looking at the figures. Unemployment, what is the ratio? How many people do you know are employed gainfully or underemployed? Even those who are supposedly employed, what are the social infrastructures available to them? So when it comes to policies, there may be so much on paper, but the devil is in the detail when it comes to implementing and seeing the impact of what government is doing in the lives of the citizens, especially the youth.
Now, talking about what the government is doing, especially in the lives of the youth, to an extent, somebody said something recently, when you complain, they give you rice. When you hit the streets,
rice.
They give you rice.
There is no light to give them rice.
So it seems rice now seems to be a bailout for the government of the day. Should we rely on stipends or rely on palliative to always bring the youth down?
No country can develop with handing palliatives over to people. If palliatives help a nation to grow, Nigeria is one of the greatest recipients of loans and aid from foreign countries. IMF, USAID, everybody gives us loans. Where has it taken us as a country? For 8 years, the Buhari administration created what they call conditional cash transfer. They opened the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs. Today, we are yet to even know exactly how much was disbursed. Tomorrow somebody will tell you we sent 25,000 naira to 40 million youths. I don't know if you got your own or if I got mine is another question. So if we are talking about giving palliatives, then we are just trying to do some knee-jerk effects to addressing core issues until we address fundamental issues of education, human capacity development and entrepreneurship, and fixing critical infrastructure to move people into production. Then we are not talking about addressing those issues.
We're talking about moving from consumption now to production.
Yes.
Let's look at the role of education. How can Nigeria's education system be restructured to better prepare young people for the modern economy?
The current educational curriculum we have is almost a disaster, is a calamity, to say, put it lightly, because people we go to school to just learn how to speak English or study whatever. There is no deliberate attempt from moving education into solving critical everyday problems. And that is where education must focus, so that when people study, it fits into society, producing, thinking, and then creating of whatever wealth or infrastructure that is there. So that is where education must focus. It is not just school or getting a degree. It can be vocation, it can be whatever, but we must tailor our educational system to meet our own daily needs, and that is the only way out of this.
So do you think we have too many educational institutions in the country?
Well, too many, I wouldn't know. We are a country of approximately, because everything in Nigeria is approximated, about 200 million people. But we don't have an act. That is the main problem. There is no data to work with. So we do not know how many persons and these institutions are catering for. But if they have the capacity to produce or provide the kind of education that is needed, I mean, there cannot be too many. As long as they are meeting the requirements of, the kind of education to empower people to meet daily needs or solve societal problems.
Okay, let's look at the issue of employment opportunities. What are the key barriers preventing youth from accessing meaningful employment? What are the key barriers?
I mean, failure in governance systems. The entire governance system is not there, because for a youth to be able to build wealth or create, the kind of impact that you have, you must be an educated mind. When we have the kind of out-of-school children we have, an epileptic educational system, the average mind is not being groomed to become fully capacitated to solving issues, to meeting demand. So everybody is just struggling to survive. As against being, having the kind of information and, requisite. But Nigerian youths are even doing the best with what they have. If you look at our entertainment industry, the tech sector, youths are paying money to develop themselves and are even working for companies even overseas or from remotely. So imagine investing in such critical sectors, and where youths now have the kind of manpower that they need to fix this. And not just that, also allowing them to be at the tables in terms of leadership, where decisions that affect their lives are being made. We must create that room and opportunity. If we have a youthful population, there is no reason why youths cannot lead, in this century and in these times.
But there was a time someone said that Nigerian youth are not ready for leadership.
I mean,
there was a time we heard that. Someone in authority said the Nigerian youth are not ready for leadership.
When you give them not too young to run bill, but you raise the price of nomination form to 100 and something million. So you are not too young to run, but you are also too poor to run. So you have to balance it. Conjecture and refutation. That is where Nigerian youths are.
There's no connection there.
There is no connection. We must create a level playing ground. We must understand that Nigerian youths have proven that they have the capacity, they are ingenious, they are able to do this. Once we put those systems in place, put the square pegs in square holes, you will see the country begin to move forward. Let the best of us lead the rest of us, and not the worst of us ruling over the rest of us.
Talking about having the best of us lead the rest of us, just recently, entertainers like Two-Face Idibia or Lao of Lagos, and some other guys, they are bidded to go to India to go study the use of CNG and come teach Nigerians. Don't we have people who are actually in this area to represent Nigerian youth there?
One of the major problems of the Nigerian governance system is the level of anyhowness and rascality in the governance, in the corridors of power. Anything can be done anyhow. because people prefer to, when you get into power through propaganda, propaganda cannot give development. So you begin to hang on to propaganda to score political points as against addressing the issues. If we want to talk about CNG and any other thing you know that they are professionals. We know where to go. But of course, a lot of people in government are also content creators. Unfortunately, we are creating content with the lives of people, human beings. So we will continue creating content until Nigerians decide that, enough is enough of this kind of, rams haphazard kind of government, and then let us fix this thing where the best hands are serving, and it is better for everybody because we are all victims of a failed and bad system.
So still talking about strengthening this failed and bad system. We've seen cases where people who are qualified for ministerial position, commissioner position, they are not given. Just recently, a serving senator have his son installed as the commissioner of health in Edo State. The daughter of the former governor of Delta State, she's in the House of Representatives in the state. We've seen so many of them. Nasiru El-Rufai have his son
in
position
the House of Reps.
in the House of Reps. How do we now have the common man have their voice and their say at national level?
In all fairness to people, if somebody gets something based on merit and you are qualified for it, the fact that your father is somebody does not mean you cannot be this. I mean, there have been a president of the US and the son becomes president. The question is, in the Nigerian context, how do we get there? What is the process? Is it that merit is completely shut out and then the, nepotism and despotism of our government it becomes a dynasty, a political dynasty? The current cabinet of the current president has more than 50 ministers. A lot of them, it has become retirement home for former governors who have the worst kind of records. So there are no technocrats anywhere. It is a reward for political, support. When you say, okay, help me become president or governor, and then I pull you in. Check all the statistics of people, sons of these who are somewhere. What roles did their fathers play or mothers play in bringing in that government in? So it's a reward for service. And can you continue like that to put the entire national development on a platter of rewarding people based on their personal service to you and not the country?
Serious question. Now, let's look at the issue of revolution. We've had cases where Nigerian youth hit the streets, try to speak against things that are not going their direction. At the end of the day, some of these protests don't see the light of the day. Should protests or hitting the streets be the only way to get the government attention?
Protests are a fundamental part of a democratic society. As long as they are peaceful and they focus on core demands. The Nigerian situation is that there is sufficient anger, but the anger is misdirected. Anger in itself is not a plan. Because you are angry with government, you go on the street, end bad governance, they want end bad governance. After some time, there will be protest fatigue. You will have to go. Nigerian youth, you will need to align our priorities. Focus on the agency of government that you know where what you are demanding for will be gotten. Not on the streets singing and dancing like a carnival or a concert. When the politicians know that you are focused and you know what you want to get, dare to have an idea. They understand that these people are serious-minded. And it will have to be cohesive. Everybody will need to come together. But as it is now, nothing mobilizes protests more than bad governance. The protests that will happen in Nigeria will be mobilized by the inefficiencies of this government.
Okay, let's move away from that. Let's quickly look at the issue of entrepreneurship. What role can entrepreneur play in addressing youth unemployment, and what support systems are currently available? Do you have any idea?
There are, the average Nigerian can tell you what supports entrepreneurship: critical infrastructure, power, road, healthcare. So if those things are lacking, how does an entrepreneur survive? How do you burn diesel or generator to fund your own small and medium scale enterprise? In developed societies, entrepreneurs and private sector push and fuel the economy. In Nigeria, government is almost the highest employer of labor. So if we do not create an enabling environment for people to thrive, it is not just about thriving, about living the kind of life that has dignity and the value of a human person. So apart from being employed, you are not underemployed. What is the social security available to you, health care, and all of that? So if we want to really push Nigeria into that developmental front, the playing field must be created by government and people allowed to thrive in a just and equitable manner.
Now, talking about people thriving, we must agree that currently cost of living is choking the living.
Even it's killing the living.
Cost of living is killing the living. Now, to an extent, even those who are gainfully employed, when they get their salaries, they don't even know what to do with it. Talk more of these people in this demographic that don't have anything doing with the
Yes.
youth, how can they thrive in this hard time?
That is why you see there are so many testimonies in church, because if you sit down and analyze your income or salary and your expenditure as a Nigerian, you know that it is only a miracle that you are alive. I mean, your minimum wage cannot purchase a bag of rice in Nigeria as it is today for you. So everybody is surviving. It is survival of the fittest. And then you begin to see that the bad side of it is that criminality will begin to go up because everybody is struggling. So as it is now, people are just looking for a means around. You do not step out before you see somebody asking you, can I help this? Everybody is moving through that weight of the economy. It is that bad. And then, you know, the president said that they will take some baby steps. Who knows if these are still the baby steps? And if baby steps have taken this long, we don't know how soon the baby will mature before people begin to see the impact of, you know, the policies. So Nigerians will need to ask themselves, for how long do we continue in this? And the government will ask themselves, what we are doing on paper, is it really having an impact on the lives of these people? Or we are just living in luxury, privatizing, you know, profit and socializing losses to the Nigerian people?
We'll be looking at the issue of privatizing losses and enriching themselves, but that will be after this break. All right, welcome back from that break. We sincerely appreciate you for staying with us. We are still looking at youth empowerment and how to strengthen our democracy to have a healthier society. We still have with us our guest, who is a public affairs analyst. He's well known as the radical evangelist. But today he's not actually coming with the evangelism vibe. He's speaking to national issue. Peter Randy Aka, thank you very much for staying with us.
Always a pleasure.
Okay, we're talking about governance.
Yes.
Do you think the government is actually fair with its kind of spending towards itself? Some persons have advocated for a reduction in cost of governance. Do you align with that thought?
Absolutely. Nigeria does not have a revenue problem. We have a cost problem. The cost of government is too high. With the economic indices that we have, with the unemployment, with the cost of living, we just recently bought a presidential plane.
Definitely.
They have renovated the vice presidential residence for 20-something billion in Abuja. And then guess what? The vice president's residence and president's residence in Lagos, in Dodan Barracks, have also been renovated for about 10 billion.
So the question is, who is staying there?
So who stays there? And remember that both the current president was the former governor of the state who has his private residence in Lagos. The vice president is the former governor of Borno State who has his own residence in Borno State. But we have a level of wastefulness that is outrageous. And then you hear government or officials from those same government telling you to make sacrifices. So unfortunately, the Nigerian situation is that Nigerians are the gifts that continues giving, while those in public office live in luxury. They do not make sacrifices. So for them, it is for profit, it is for, you know, affluence. They enjoy the perks of office, but the responsibility of the office, nobody wants to attend to it. So let me get whatever that is attached to it. But the work to be done is not being done, and Nigerians are paying dearly for it.
Nigerians are actually paying daily for it. Responsibility, they say, is given to responsible people.
Yes.
But it's like the youth are seen to an extent as a class of persons who are not responsible. When you talk about ill vices in the society, they are there. When you talk about fraud, you see Nigerian youth there, you know, and so many other things. In those states, for instance, we are still battling with the issue of insecurity. We see court clashes everywhere. How can these youth be engaged using technology?
Against that even information, Nigerian youths are some of the most enterprising and ingenious people anywhere in the world. The data that Nigerian youths are involved in criminality or whatever is erroneous. There is a little fraction, and it is a reflection of the failure in governance and governance system. If we talk about youth involving in fraud, the governors and other politicians who are standing fraud of 100 and something billion, what are they? So criminality begets criminality, and if you build a system of corruption, corruption will fester. We must fix the societal fabric, and that is why the youth learn from what they are seeing. If those people who are supposed to be leaders are not leading by example, you are stealing money that is meant to build road, do hospital, and you are running after Yahoo boys. The main people who are to be run after are people who are in charge of public funds. Because that is where people begin to look up to and say, when there is no accountability, nobody is being held to anything. A former governor can be convicted, he will become a senator, he will become anything, minister. So what is the incentive for a young person not to go into criminality? When you fix the economy, you give people every means to live a decent life, and they go again to involve in criminality, you can put the full weight of the law, because crime should not be excused no matter the circumstance. But the government must play their part and ensure that everybody is given equal opportunities to thrive.
Okay, let's look at the issue of policy, government policy. What policy has the government implemented to empower the youth, and how effective have this policy been? You are a youth advocate.
Since I don't even speak for the government, I can only speak from my personal experience. I don't know the policies that the government have put to strengthen or empower the youth, but I know policies that have pushed even more youth into poverty. Fuel subsidy regime is over. We floated the naira, you know, forex and all of that. Cost, exchange rate and everything skyrocketed. Cost of transportation, it boils down back to everybody, the average Nigerian and consumer. So those policies are the ones that have greatly impacted the quality of lives of Nigerians and the ability to, you know, engage in enterprising, you know, adventures or whatever they chose to do. Young Nigerians who are trying to build businesses, startups and all of that, what is the incentive? What do they have to give them the opportunity? What access do they have to credit and all of that? So we have not seen a concrete plan in addressing the core issues that affect this demographic of society.
Okay, talking about concrete plan, to an extent, let's look at the female gender.
Yes.
A good number of them are caught in the web of urgent 2K.
Yes.
Some are also caught in the web. Some person says that to even go into relationship in Nigeria now is by connection.
Yes.
Before you say hello to the people of the other gender,
your account is ringing.
So how can we empower these ladies and take them off the street, especially those that are on the street?
And to be fair, once again, the female gender have proven to be like some of the most resourceful human beings. Most of the indices that we have are just a minority. When you give equal opportunities to people, the female have also proven to be as good. Look at Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, re-elected for a second term at the WTO, unopposed. That is what a Nigerian woman can do, and a Nigerian girl child. The question is, what empowerment educationally have been put into this gender or this demographic? And if we fail to do so, we are ignoring a very critical part of our population, because women are actually nation builders. They are the one who ensure that democracy does not collapse. They are the greatest voting population. So we must pay, there must be, you know, we must be intentional about empowering every person, especially even that demographic as young girl. Look at the statistics about out-of-school children. That of female is so high. How do we address all of that? It is intentionality on the part of government.
Now, it's very hard to an extent to have female in elective position.
Yes.
When they run for certain elections, they don't even get anywhere in the primaries.
Yes.
Will it continue like this?
It will continue like that until we reform our electoral process. And that is why I have almost become a broken record in clamoring that, look, as it is today in Nigeria, until we realize that INEC is actually the main weapon fashioned against us, the earlier we realize it, the better, because we must fix it. Not only do women have issues going into public office, even men of noble character, because the system is so corrupt and violent that only the violent can survive it. It weeds out people who are ready to play by the rules. Look at a former president, like the former Vice President Yemi Oshibanjo, a highly cerebral person who would have, you know, given the opportunity, will be anybody in the country. He tried to attend the APC primaries. What happened there? So the system is not just stacked against just women. Even persons with competence and character who want to play by decency and the rules of governance do not have a fair shot. Only those who are ready to get through the crooked system, end up in a crooked judiciary, will prevail. Until we fix it, we continue to lament.
Should every electionary season end in the judiciary?
Why? Why should the courts be choosing leaders for us as against people picking their leaders from the ballot box? It is a flawed system. There is a problem. If after every election we have to wait for tribunal, appeal court, Supreme Court, and then Supreme Court will do its own calisthenics, as we see one governor they can call Supreme Court governor. Until we fix that, we have a serious problem, Because guess what? That is the only means through which these people get into public office. And if you have not fixed that process, how they get there, you are not safeguarding anything. And that is the only way you can hold them accountable. If not, anybody will do anything and it's uhuru for them. Buhari did his 8 years. He's moving around freely. Tinubu will finish, he will go. Nothing happens to Nigerian politicians. We must find a way of holding public office holders accountable.
But to an extent, holding them accountable might be difficult. He who pays the piper determines the tunes. They said INEC is independent, but is it really independent in a way?
If INEC is not independent, would you, the people, continue to allow it be independent or dependent on the politician? Democracy is a government by the people. The power of the people must be greater than the people in power. Once a majority of Nigerians decide that enough, no matter how long oppression have lasted, once a majority says enough, it will be enough. If Nigerians are ready, the civic pressure to be put to reform INEC and electoral reform and judicial reform and law enforcement is available to Nigerians. If we are ready to use it, it's up to us.
Okay, before we let you go, looking ahead, what are the key priorities for Nigeria in the next 5 years to ensure a healthier, empowered youth population and a stable economy?
If we do not strengthen our institutions, we are not moving anywhere. Youth have always had. I grew up hearing that we are the leaders of tomorrow. A septuagenarian is currently our president. I've been left from somebody who was also at that point in age also. You understand? We must begin to pay attention to building strong institutions and not strong men. If Nigeria continues to have where one person as politician can control the entire police, control the entire army, EFCC, judiciary, National Assembly, we are in trouble. We must come together and begin to build our institutions, beginning with the electoral system. We get in people who have character and competence to build a judicial system that is strong, a legislative arm of government. From there, we begin to create policies that everyone can thrive. Because whether you talk about agriculture or whatever, insecurity will not allow you to do that. We must get in people who share a common vision for national interest and not for personal self-gratification or financial aggrandizement. If not, we are all victims.
Talking about interests, finally, the role of civil society. Remember, to an extent, some persons have actually alleged that we have civil society groups who are just after their pockets.
Yes.
They rant and shout, and at the end of the day, go to the round table and get their shares and go back to their hiding. How do we have civil societies who actually speak to power and get things done the right way?
My hope is that may good Nigeria prevail. In the midst of civil societies who may be being shady, there are some who are honest. May Nigerians continue to have this conversation, because the truth of the matter, people do not realize that you are all victims. Today's victims were yesterday's survivors. The next people who Nigeria will happen to will be from the living. The dead can no longer die. Because you took a stipend does not mean a stray bullet may not hit you. Does not mean kidnapper may not carry. In fact, you may even collect money as a civil society and use it to pay ransom. The earlier we realize that we are all victims of a failed system, let's come together and fix it. The better for all of us.
I'm going to take this as your final word.
Final.
The earlier we remember that we are all victims of a failed system,
yes,
the better for us. Thank you very much, Randy Peter Aka, for finding time to be with us on the program.
My absolute pleasure.
We hope to have you again.
Always yours, whenever you
And
go.
this time around, we'll be looking at your other side. The
radical man will go to window so.
All right, just before we let you go from our Lagos studio, let's give you our parting shot. If you want to be happy, stop complaining and start creating the life you desire. Your happiness is definitely in your hands. This is our parting shot from our Lagos studio. My name is Daniel Praise Osedebame.